Coral Bay wasn't the kind of place you'd see on a travel brochure. The cliffs were too jagged for comfort, the Indian Ocean too restless, and the people held on to their grudges the way other towns held on to heirlooms. The sun baked everything until it cracked, and if you didn't respect the sea or the bush, one would swallow you and the other would burn you. For as long as I could remember, the town was a living thing. Its pulse set by the hum of trawlers pulling into the harbor and the clang of tools in my workshop. My name's Daniel Reed, and for most of my life, I was Coral Bay's mechanic. My hands were permanently marked by my work callus, nicked grease so deep in the skin it might as well have been part of me. I kept the fishing fleet alive, same as my father before me. But my mouth was a different kind of tool. Sharp, quick, and dangerous when wielded without care. I used it like a spanner to strip bolts, except I stripped people instead. I called it wit. Others, I now realize, called it cruelty. The first real crack in my life didn't come from a rusted gearbox or a cracked hull. It came from my brother, Tom. We'd been close once too. Boys orphaned young, raised by the sea, and the old lighthouse keeper after our parents were taken by a rip. Tom grew into a skipper, running the same waters our father had. I kept his boat running like a heartbeat. It was late January. The air so hot it felt heavy. Gallus screamed from the power lines, their pink and gray feathers dulled by the dust. I was in the workshop when his voice came over the marine radio, frantic, cut to ribbons by static. Dan, the gearbox has seized, dead in the water. We've got smoke in the hold, then nothing. Just the hiss of dead air. A rescue crew from Geraldton dragged them back before they drifted onto the reefs. But when Tom stepped into my workshop that night, his face was streaked with soot and fury. His shirt smelled of diesel and smoke. "You cut corners, didn't you?" His voice was low, but there was more danger in it than if he'd shouted. "You put in cheap parts to save a few bucks." I fired back without thinking. "You run that boat like it's a racehorse. Tom, I told you that gearbox was dying, but you didn't want to listen." We went at it hard, voices bouncing off the corrugated tin walls, neither of us giving an inch. The ceiling fan spun lazily overhead, moving the hot air around, but not cooling it. Then he dropped the words that ended it. "I can't trust you. Not with my life. Not with anyone's." He walked out, and with him went the town's trust in me. The days after that were long and silent. Word traveled faster than the tide. Fishermen avoided my shop and my eyes. At the pub, conversations cut off mid-sentence. When I walked in, I told myself I'd been right, that Tom was ungrateful, that everyone else was a fool. My sarcasm became my shield, but a shield with holes doesn't stop much. One Tuesday afternoon, I sat alone in the workshop, staring at the empty space where Tom's boat should have been. The air was thick with the smell of old oil and hot metal. My eyes landed on a greasy hubcap on a shelf, and in its dull reflection I saw a man I barely recognized. That sharp tongue of mine hadn't been with it, was armor. And the shortcuts I'd taken weren't about saving money. They were about arrogance. I'd gambled with my brother's life and the lives of his crew. And for what? More free time. A sense that I was clever enough to cut corners? I'd even enjoyed winning arguments with him. Little jabs that left marks he couldn't see, but I could. The tears came unexpected and hot. They cut tracks through the dust on my face, mixing with the grease on my hands. I cried not because Tom was angry with me, but because I could see what I'd become. I was still finding my way through that shame when Marcus Flynn came back to town. We'd grown up. Together, well. Together's generous. I'd made sure he was on the outside looking in. He'd left Coral Bay in his 20s, and now he rolled back in wearing a city suit and a smile polished to perfection. He had a plan. Bulldoze the old lighthouse, the same one that had guided my parents' boat and countless others, and replace it with a luxury hotel. At the first council meeting, the town split right down the middle. Half wanted to save the lighthouse. Half, including Mrs. Larkin, whose husband had been lost at sea-backed Marcus. She said the lighthouse brought her nothing but grief. The old me would have torn her down with a few choice lines. Instead, I stood and tried to keep my voice steady. "Mrs. Larkin," I said, "I know the lighthouse holds hard memories, but maybe we can find a way that honors the past and builds the future." The room didn't sway to my side. The vote was postpone. But I left without the bitter taste I used to carry after a fight. A few nights later, Marcus found me at the pub. "Heard you've gone soft," he said, smirking. "Lost your touch." I could have put him on the floor with words, but I asked instead, "Why does tearing down the lighthouse matter so much to you?" His smirk slipped. "You don't remember, do you?" He told me about the day, decades ago, when I'd laughed in his face, told him his dreams were as empty as his pockets. How it had driven him out of Coral Bay. I had no memory of the words, but he'd carried them like a scar. We sat for hours, picking apart old wounds, the jukebox in the corner warbling an old slim dusty song. I apologized. He didn't forgive me right then, but the air between us shifted. It was mid-February when the fire came. A dry lightning storm over the ranges lit the scrub like matchsticks. By morning, the hills were burning, and the wind was driving the flames toward town. The CFA trucks were already roaring through the streets, their sirens swallowed by the sound of the wind. People hosed down their roofs, threw damp towels under door gaps, and loaded pets into cars. The smell of eucalyptus oil and smoke settled in your clothes and wouldn't wash out. Evacuation orders went out. Most people packed up, but Mrs. Larkin refused. "This house is all I have left of him," she told the volunteers. "If it burns with me in it." When I heard, I went straight to Tom. We hadn't worked side by side in years. "She won't leave," I told her. That was all it took. He grabbed 2 respirators, a fire blanket, and a pair of goggles. The air outside was thick with smoke, the sky a bruised orange. Cockatoos wheeled overhead, screeching their alarm. Ash drifted down like snowflakes that stung when they touched skin. We drove as far as we could before the road was blocked by fallen branches and embers glowing in the bit. From there, we went on foot, keeping low as hot wind blasted grit into our faces. Mrs. Larkin's cottage sat half hidden behind a wall of smoke. The gums around it were lit up, their leaves exploding into fireballs. The roar of the flames was like a freight train. Inside, she was on the couch, clutching a framed photo, her eyes streaming. "This house, it's all I've got left," she whispered. The old me would have barked at her to move. Instead, I knelt. "Mrs. Larkin, the Lord gives us words to lift the weary. You're not alone. We'll face this together." Her eyes met mine, and after a long pause, she nodded. Tom wrapped her in the blanket, and we let her out through air, so hot it seared the back of my throat. A burning branch crashed down nearby, sending sparks across the path. Tom yanked me back just in time. We stumbled toward the fire trucks, lungs burning, eyes streaming, the sound of the blaze drowning out everything else. The fire burned for 3 days. When it finally died, Coral Bay was blackened but standing. The lighthouse was scorched, but still there, its glass cracked, its metal blackened, but its light still shining. The smell of ash lingered for weeks, even after the first rains came. Tom and I rebuilt the fleet together, our work quiet and steady, the way trust is built. Marcus saw the town's heart in the ashes and abandoned his hotel plans. Instead, we started an ecotourism venture that kept the lighthouse and brought jobs without stripping Coral Bay of its soul.
Some stories end loud, with sirens, shouts, or a slamming door. Others end quietly, like a candle burning out at dawn. But all of them leave something behind. A question, a scar, a prayer. I fold this one away, not to forget, but to remember that even in the ashes, God still speaks. Until next time, my name is Gilbert, and I am the listener.